Welcome, welcome back to Crafting a Meaningful Life. Guess what we get to do today? We get to talk to a woman who is living in Madrid, Spain, which is like fantastic. I'm sorry. She did live in Madrid. Now she lives in Portugal, but she was born and raised in Stuttgart and then in Berlin. She's lived in Italy. She's lived really in so many places in Europe. And when she reached out to me about being on my podcast, I always delve deep into them and want to know all about them. And what I discovered about this woman is that we have more in common than you guys are ever going to believe how much we have in common, because she's about leadership, which is kind of what I'm about. She's also about change and how we bring about change and how we become good leaders. And she's written a book called Who's in Charge? And we'll give you all those links at the end of the podcast on how to connect with her and how to buy her book. But just to not take any more time on me, I would like you to welcome to the podcast today, Sylvia Rohde-Liebenau. Please, Sylvia, pronounce your last name for me so that I don't completely mess it up for my listeners.
Yeah, it's terrible. I really should have changed my name a long time ago in order to not do this to people, because I mostly live outside of Germany, and for anyone who's not German, it's awful to pronounce. We pronounce it Rohde-Liebenau.
Rohde-Liebenau. Okay.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to probably not pronounce that again. We'll just call you Sylvia. Sylvia, I was going to tell you that my ancestors on my dad's side all were from Germany, that Stuttgart area.
Okay,
and
so one more thing in common, yes.
One more thing in common. In fact, I always said, would you rather be an Italian sports car or would you rather be a German Mercedes? And in the end, when we're young, we think we want to be the Italian sports car. But as we grow and we realize the value of something that's well built and lasting and engineered beautifully, the value of being a Mercedes is much greater than the Italian sports car.
Although I've been called a Ferrari once, and I wondered whether that was a compliment or criticism. It was meant as a compliment, but understood as, oh, she's maybe a bit fast.
Well, I actually own a sports car now. So I have the sports car and my Mercedes, so I'm good to go.
It's a good combination.
One of the things when I first started reading about you that struck me was that the things we had in common were that you are committed to building great leaders and understanding how we lead. And that's why you wrote your book, Who's in Charge? But then I read deeper. And sometimes, in fact, most times, Sylvia, when people write a book on leadership, they take it from that perspective of, I'm going to teach you how to lead. And the methods are all turned outward.
Yeah.
As I read more about you and being an energy worker and into yoga, and you were an artist and a musician, and you've developed these techniques that were actually turned inward. And so many leaders don't see that as where to start. So let's start with telling us a little bit about your journey and how you got to this point about being this profound leader and teaching about leadership. So let's start with your history.
Thank you, Mary. And it's such a privilege to have this conversation with you. I've looked forward to this for a long time now. Fantastic. So where should I start? When I was a kid, I was already very much interested in, curious in how can I do things in a way that is felt deeply? How can I do things in a way that that is fully expressed? And of course, as a kid, I didn't know what I was doing, but I had this intensity and this passion for everything that I was doing. And then when I went further into later times in school, it became more the search for deep understanding of how how I function as a human being. So I started to do yoga and meditation when I was 16, 17. And at the same time, I had this fantastic Greek teacher, so ancient Greek, and he made us think and discuss a lot
Yeah.
about Plato and how society and how our human relationships and the state and politics function. So I was always driven by profound curiosity about how we as human beings individually and as societies, how do we function? And then there is this drive in me how to make things better. I think I'm a huge idealist and
Oh, okay.
as I call it, one more thing, possibilist, like not ideas in the sense of like pie in the sky and wouldn't be nice, but if there's a challenge, for me, it's like, oh no, this is too complicated, let's drop it, but let's see whether we can do this. And so, for instance, like a small detail, I wrote my PhD um, on a security um, politics topic, but I took an angle on do what does civil society have to do? Like, what is the impact of civil society on intergovernmental relations and security policy? And with a very
Oh,
concrete example. And I wanted to prove that it's not only guns and bullets, it's actually also words and values and what people believe to be true, and the support that the society gives to their government, because if that is weak, the government, the state becomes weak, all these things. And my little thing as a 26-year-old was, will I get a scholarship for writing about this when normally scholarships are given for guns and bullets topics? So also like not taking a no for um, the most probable answer, but I will be able to do that. And my approach to life and also working with my clients is don't believe life is small. Believe in what you can do, and go for it. Like go for what seems impossible. So be a possibilist, um, which also makes us grow. When we have that approach, it's like, shall I say, oh, it's not possible, or no, let's see. And it's also in the small things. I just had this conversation with my 21-year-old daughter the other day, who's in Rome, and she's passionate about the arts, and she wanted to go to this exhibition, and she says, but it's like on invitation only, and it says it's all sold out. I said, Sophia, go there or call them. And she told me
yes.
after I called them, and there was a ticket that was like given back,
Yeah.
and I got that one.
Perfect example. Yes. So after your PhD, then where did you go from there?
Well, after my PhD, I had the opportunity to do a very practical kind of work at the European Commission in Brussels, to manage a um, development cooperation program for telecoms, which I didn't know anything about. So I had to to learn from the people who knew the technicality. I knew about Eastern Europe, which was where, like politically, where I had written my PhD about, and I knew about program management. So it was a big challenge. Again, it would be possible that I manage a telecoms program, although I don't know anything about telecoms, learning and collaborating. And so I did that, learned a huge lot about how organizations work, how to make collaboration across silos work, because I didn't know anything about telecoms. So I had to collaborate and convince my boss that this is a good thing. And so I did that. Then I got very much interested in how do organizations evolve, because some organizations would change and improve and
Mhm.
others wouldn't. So I went to study organization development, and actually I went into consulting to go more into the details, to go more really into how does it work and how do I do it rather than administrating these programs. And so I was a consultant, and when I led all these projects. So I managed our section on international uh, programs for
Mm.
institution development. And I got more and more interested in the micro. So really understanding the organization and change in organizations, and studied more of that. And that also got me into coaching. That was like in the end of the 1990s. Because there's the organizational part and then there's the human part.
Yeah.
And so I did that. And with that human part, I had the opportunity to then start working for the European Investment Bank as career advisor, it was called, that position. And so there was half coaching, half organization development and people development.
So you went from your PhD to telecom to investment banking. Girl, you've been the gamut.
in, in many places. So it was telecoms, um, public administration reform, because I managed to get another job in the European Commission, which was more like my expertise as a political scientist dealing with public administration reform. And then I also worked for the Human Rights Division of the European Commission. And then there was this consulting job um, that I saw actually in The Economist, sitting at my breakfast table one morning on a Sunday. Oh, this company, they're a really good company. I'm going to, oh, they have this job. I should call them whether they are interested in my profile. And they were, and then I was there for a number of years. And then joined the European Investment Bank and had extremely interesting experiences there, because it's the European Investment Bank is a bit like the World Bank for Europe. And my job was in many ways to help the organization improve its the way it worked, through leadership development, through talent development, through conflict management, through leading a part that we called organizational health, which brings together individual health and team health, so good team functioning
Sure.
and leadership. And then finally, I was responsible for the conceptual part of leadership development. And then decided that the world is big, and I wanted to leave the institution to really focus on leadership development and serve different organizations and companies.
Wow. So several things struck me. I have so many questions, so just hang tight. I'm going to try and get to all of them. One of the things that struck me was when you talked about you began to see the transformation and witness the change in corporations as they were not just concerned about team health, but they
Mm.
realized team health came from individual health. And now this some time has passed and we actually see that coming to fruition, that the truth of that people now, corporations now realize that the way to the health of their team and their organization is to make sure that the individual is healthy and cared for and that they are on their own path. You've actually seen that concept come to fruition in all of these corporate things now.
And I've seen how true it is, how important it is for organizations that they don't only look after the healthcare, that they have a occupational health physician, like a psychologist on site, but they really look to having the teams and the people work in a healthy way together. So it's a question of are the goals clear? Is my role clear? Do I know what I'm doing here? Do I know where we are going? Do I get support from my manager when things are difficult? But autonomy as much as I can use, so I can actually thrive and give my best rather than being micromanaged. Are there conflicts that are festering, or is there a way in the organization that people can speak about things openly? All these things are crucial for organizational and people health, and therefore also for performance. So it's
Yeah.
something we have to look at for the well-being of people and for the performance of the organization. If we neglect that, It's push, push,
Yeah.
push, but on the long term, it doesn't work.
You know, in my career starting in the 70s, graduated from college and then kind of began that direction. The way to keep and retain employees and the way to lead people to where you wanted them to go was totally a carrot situation. You simply accomplished that through money. You paid
Mm.
them enough, they loved their job. You didn't pay them enough, they hated their job. It was pretty cut and dried. At least we thought it was at that time.
Mm.
And then with kind of the advent of the tech industry, we began to see that, oh, it's not just about how much I pay this person. So then every tech company opened up rooms with pool tables and video games and good food. And they thought it was still all of this out here outside of the individual. And now we've seen the transition in corporations for this care of the soul. I don't know how else to say it. They may not be computing it that way. I'm caring for your soul, but that is the realization that we've come to, is we have to care for people's self-care and their self-worth and lift it in other ways than just through providing the
Totally.
kids and trinkets and more money.
Yeah, exactly.
So in your travels with this, obviously you've seen so many different organizations and their leadership styles. Led you to the point of writing a book called Who's in Charge? What would you say are some of the key pieces that you have seen in the evolution of leadership, and where do we go from here?
Your question makes me think of one thing that my dad, who had a long career in corporates, he said to me once when I told him about what I was doing at the European Investment Bank, about how leadership was changing, about how it becomes more human, how people are allowed to speak up and invited to speak up. He said, "Oh my God, this is really beautiful. Couldn't have dreamt of us having that in my time." So he's 94 now, where leadership was more really top down, command and control. Maybe also sometimes your boss would roughen up a little bit employees to see who was tough and who was a sissy, believing therefore also that women certainly would probably be too weak to seriously work and lead, whereas now we understand that female leadership is not better than male leadership, but brings very often a wisdom and ability to collaborate and to see connections that is specifically feminine, and therefore brings a strength. So our ability to see leadership, like leadership strength, in its different facets. So I think that is one development. Another development is really and that's what I'm speaking about in my book, to give all those leaders who want to go that direction some tools and support to really do it with his success, to really move from command and control and like win-lose approaches
Yes.
um, to empowering approaches, to approaches that look at systems. So how do the dots connect actually, that leverage collaboration? And it's not in the sense of you and I operate, but we cooperate together. I call it in my smart power method, merging power, the courage and ability to give away a little bit of my power so that we have more power together. It's like, for instance, you have in banks, you have the typical competition or opposition between lending, legal, and credit and compliance also more recently. And these parts of the organization can be in competition and hinder each other, or they can think, I actually, we work for the same company, for the same bank. How do we work together? So we do not withhold information. We do not try to stop the other one from being successful in their area, but we all see how we can work together. So we have to pool information, we have to pool resources, we have to help each other, so we have more power together. The European Union is also a great example for that. It's not anything against other states, it's for each other. And it's knowing that if we exchange information, if we help each other, we will be more successful together. Also, the United States of America, is also an example of 50 federal states who ideally help each other to be stronger together.
Ideally. Absolutely. This is interesting to me. And this is how, we haven't talked about this piece yet, but that I have a sense that we are more alike than different, as we all are. And I think that's the realization, that we all have the same needs, wants, and desires. We have different paths to achieve them. But the basic desires in our lives are the same. And one person might believe that their way to achieve peace, unity, and happiness is to belong to a gang and make sure that their gang wins, and thus eliminate the other gang. That's one form of that. The other form is just what you touched on, is how do we move then from that win-lose mindset to the win-win mindset? And in my career and in the early years of my retirement even, I believed in approaching life with this win-win concept, that leadership and management and the worker bees could all find this homeostasis of oneness. And it wasn't until about 3 years ago, Sylvia, that I realized that for me, it was a much larger concept than within the corporate structure. Because I believe at deep levels that the dream of humankind is oneness. Now, in order to achieve that, how can I win and you lose? That is not even possible. That mindset will never lead us to oneness.
Absolutely.
So if I'm striving to be my very best self, the next step in that, the obvious step of that, is that if I want the best for me, the best of me wants the best for you. And nothing short of that. And that's what our purpose is, to allow us to come to that oneness of what I used to term as win-win. My best self wants the very best for you. So in your book, Who's in Charge? How does that concept of coming to oneness come out and express itself in Who's in Charge?
In different ways. So the book Who's in Charge has 3 main pillars. One is about energy, because we have to resource ourselves. The second is about power, understanding power in the right way so we can actually be powerful and not only have power. Because if I sit on the power, it doesn't really help me a lot. But if I am smart to use power in a way that really allows me to create something, because that's actually what power is there for, then I'm really powerful. And the third part is about legacy. So it's very much connected also to your mission, meaning and purpose in life. And so unity. In energy, there is a very important part of our energy, which is spiritual energy. And that is not only the energy of purpose. Some have defined it as the energy of purpose. So then I have a connection to something that is higher than simply the day-to-day. And that's valid, but I believe that spiritual energy actually goes further. It is really about this felt sense of interconnectedness. Like if I really feel like going out into nature and I feel that I am part of this larger thing that is so much larger than any of us is, and we are all connected in that. And if I look into your eyes, Mary, then I feel also that we are part of the same being, of the same interrelatedness, that our souls are the same in the end, that we have different lives and egos, but the soul connects somewhere in a space that we don't even understand as human beings. Um, but we can't understand it with our mind, and yet we can understand it with our heart. We can understand it with our feeling. And what I've learned is how to get there is to be silent for a moment,
Yeah.
to look into each other's eyes, to breathe, to feel, because there's nothing we can find with our intellect. It's really all about being connected to our feeling, to our body, to our breath.
Yeah.
And it gives
Um,
us so much peace, no? If we can connect to that.
mm. See, I knew we were alike. It's true. One of the things that I struggled with in the later parts of my career and early parts of retirement was that corporations weren't interested in hearing about this kind of power, about this kind of depth for movement, for growth, because they couldn't analyze it on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And yet now we are coming to see that, oh, I can read a P&L and I can see that this approach has helped my bottom line. So they're awakening somewhat to it. But do you still find and maybe you don't because you're now working in with those companies and I'm kind of now on the other side of that. Do you find that they are really interested in this approach of connecting to something of higher
Absolutely.
self? Or are they still kind of saying, I'm sorry, that's too woo-woo for me?
Well, the interesting thing is that the best leaders and the best companies, they absolutely are. Look at McKinsey.
Yeah.
Um, can say about them what you want, but they're a very, very successful company, and they use meditation and like inner alignment as one of their pillars. Google have spearheaded that also. They have actually a program that is called Search Inside Yourself. And when I led these initiatives at the European Investment Bank, so I researched what are great organizations doing out there. And uh, the program run by Google is one of the most interesting and strongest ones. And it's a very, very successful company. So when companies, organizations are smart, then they use it. And I think sometimes leaders are a bit afraid because they might think, well, that's something I can't control directly. So it might be woohoo, or I might be thought that I'm a little bit woo-woo. And therefore, let's maybe not go in there. Or simply they believe that if they open themselves up to these disciplines, as I would call them, because it's not something random, but it is a practice and a discipline, that they might kind of get on a path that is not rational anymore. And what I've found is by um, having a regular practice of silence and meditation and focus, I'm much better at the work that I do. And when I was in corporate, I was much better able to have difficult conversations, to do things that were hard, that to juggle with multiples, because I had this grounding and this focus. So my encouragement to everyone would be give it a try because it's really, really helpful.
Once again, we are more alike than we are different. I'm I'm definitely a daily meditation person. And sometimes people think in their brains, I really don't have time for that, because they envision it as being, it's an hour to 2 hour type of a process. And when would I fit that into my day? And it's not that they don't think there might be value. They just don't know how to get it in their lives.
Start
And
with 3 minutes.
that's what I have learned. I can even set my meditation mind now so keenly. I can do it in about 30 seconds in the morning when I swing my feet out of bed and I'm just sitting there on the edge of my bed. I can zero in so quickly, set my path, and then say, where I look down at my feet, Sylvia, and I say, where will you go today?
Hmm.
And how will you show up?
Yeah.
And then take a moment to listen. That's the key part, is we're listening. The answers are there
Yeah.
if we but listen. So how do you teach people about this concept of meditation and how to do it? And most of my listeners are women. I have 85% listeners. So you're talking to women, okay? You're talking to me
Hmm.
and you, okay? The woman who is in her 40s and 50s and 60s even, who thinks, I don't have time for that. I hear what you're saying, but I don't have time.
I am very much following one of my early like models and teachers of meditation, Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese Buddhist monk.
Yes.
He says and writes that meditation shouldn't be something uncomfortable, hard, another piece of work. That's why I said start with 3 minutes.
Yeah.
It should be um, pleasurable in the sense that we are using our senses, our curiosity. We look also for our well-being. For instance, when I'm tired, I meditate lying because it's about focus. I know that it's good to have the connection, heaven and earth, but if my body needs rest, then I simply will lie horizontally, and that's also good. And yes, start with 3 minutes. Observe your breath, but not in a forced way, but I say find your breath first. Like, where's my breath? That's a nice feeling that I can feel my breath. Where do I feel it in my body? Oh, there's a little blockage. Can I release that? So really, uh, give myself kindness while I use meditation. That's what I tell myself and what I tell my clients.
I love that. Uh, I I never want meditation to be for myself or for anyone else simply a part of the checklist. Okay, check. I got my meditation in today. Because the checklist is probably the thing that moves you as far away from alignment as you could possibly be, as opposed to, what do I want right now? What do I want to draw into my life?
Yeah.
And it can vary from day to day. It can be 3 minutes, it can be 30 seconds, it can be an hour, it can be whatever you're drawn to. But it begins with that desire to be curious, to find, what does
Yes.
alignment look like? How do I move towards that? What would that feel like? Do you recommend people start with guided meditations, or to go to a meditation workshop, or to simply go within?
Personally, I prefer to simply go within because the guided meditation can be simply like I listen to something, I'm not really there. However, I know many people who find it difficult. And I said, well, then start with that because it can be also a very beautiful and and connecting and relaxing experience. And it's great then to start with that. And sometimes in these guided meditations, there are also moments of silence. So I think also there it's like if you say that going into stillness, going within, it's too hard, or you don't know even where to start because your mind is always talking, or then do a guided meditation. They're very beautiful ones also out there.
Yeah. I think that everyone finds an individual path.
Yeah, indeed.
But one of the key pieces is whatever you choose, does it lead you to you? Or does it keep
Exactly.
you focused out here with the guide or with the workshop? But whatever you choose, if it leads you to here, then that is the ultimate goal.
Yeah, yeah.
I was sharing with you before we started talking about reading through all of your information and excerpts from your book and your website and then your bio that went on for like 4 pages, because you've done so much. And afterwards, I was standing in by my bathroom mirror this morning, getting ready to come on the podcast. And I thought to myself, the question, the title of your book, who's in charge? And initially, I was thinking about this from the point of view of being a CEO, being in management. Who's in charge? Do we feel like we're in charge, or how do we create that leadership role for ourselves? But as I stood there at age 72 and looked at myself and said, I'm no longer a CEO. I'm no longer leading a corporation. How does that apply to me? And I have to tell you, Sylvia, in the United States, I have felt like I have no idea who's in charge. It's not the people. It's certainly not the president. It's like, who is in charge? And your book led me to the awareness that how I can bring about change is just with me. I can be in charge of my thoughts. I can be in charge of my actions. And if those lead me to step out, then I step out. But I
Yeah.
know that when I ask myself that question, who's in charge, it's not going to lead me to inaction, and it's not going to lead me to silence. How do you think this question and your book can apply to the individual as they look and analyze where they are in their life and where am I going?
I love the question. First of all, the book is about leadership, and I believe that leadership with a big L, so the leaders of our countries and our
Right.
corporation, is super important, especially as the world is so chaotic as it is. We need good leadership. So it can't simply happen because we kind of spontaneously throw a party. And it's also for these leaders that I've written the book. There's the leaders who want to make a difference, who want to lead our countries to prosperity and not only enrich ourselves or be in power or whatever. This said, the book is also for all of us because, as you say, yeah, who is in charge, and am I in charge, and how can I navigate myself, individual self, through this chaotic world that I live in? I recently was in a taxi driving home from the airport, and the taxi driver, very nice young man, he said, yeah, he's going to he doesn't know how to for who to vote for in Spain because there are all these immigrants and the economy, blah 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 blah. And he was very confused, as many voters are today. And I think many of us, and I'm sometimes confused because, like, where do we start? There's so much to do. And if we if we take care of ourselves, of our energy, and of the way that we relate to other people, the way that we create our own world, and how we can be powerful. That is, how can we create outcomes that actually we want to create in our own sphere. Then we will also be better citizens, and we will have more successful lives, and we will know which leader to support and which leader actually is only enriching themselves. And I think that's where the book really comes in. And actually, one of my readers said, well, actually, I'm not a leader, but this is a self-development book. And so from the beginning to the start, especially in the energy chapter, but also like if I think about how to lead my family, and each parent is a leader. It's not like one leads and the other doesn't, but it's leading together.
Yeah.
Is how do I lead? Like one aspect of the book is how do I lead with love, and love not only meaning that I'm kind to everybody, but is that the opposite of love being fear. How do I create something out of
Yeah.
love, out of the desire to create and to give, rather than to limit damage or to protect something that I have? And that is leadership in every sphere of our lives.
Yes. Wow.
And the
So
part about
not only,
legacy.
yeah. Oh, yes. Tell me
Just
about
let me
legacy,
add
how that plays in there.
exactly
Yes.
because I mean, legacy is important for each of us. Whatever life we live, and this is really about connecting to what we want to create with our life, not when we are 94, but in our 40s or even earlier, to really be connected to our purpose, to our why, and to the meaning that we want to give to our lives, so that when our life comes to completion, we can actually say, that was a good life. I don't need to be CEO. I don't need to have like a building named after my name. But I want to be able to say with that one day is that I gave to the people around me what I wanted to give. I was the person that I wanted to be. And I'm leaving something behind that can't be counted maybe in immaterial values. Because even Steve Jobs said at the end of his life that maybe the immaterial values were more important than the material ones that he obviously created. So I think all of us at the end of our lives, we want to be able to say, that was the life that I'm proud to have lived, that I'm content to complete now.
Thus the title of my podcast, Crafting a Meaningful Life. It's an active word. It's crafting. It's something
Yes,
we get to do every day to make those
yes,
choices that lead us to not just have it at the end, but to enjoy it now. A
yeah,
meaningful life.
yeah,
And meaningful means something different to everyone.
yeah,
And for legacy, for me, is simply how I have changed what other people's, how they've lived their life and that
yeah,
they've been able to have a meaningful life.
yeah,
Those people living their fullest potential will be my greatest legacy that I
yes,
ever could leave. Not
yes,
about, not about anything I've done, but what they're doing.
yeah.
And that's just making those choices every day.
Mm,
Sylvia, what a
exactly.
delight. At the end of this podcast, listeners, you're going to be able to find her website, her link to her Amazon book, and then how you can connect with her on different things. Are you on LinkedIn, Sylvia?
I'm linked on LinkedIn, yeah,
Yeah.
under my name. It's easy to find me.
Okay. That's the same with me. People ask me, I'm like, it's just Mary Crafts. It's pretty easy. And your name is unique enough that they will definitely be able to find
Yeah,
you. And thank you so much for not just writing the book, but the wisdom that you bring forth for all of us to take advantage of at this time. Right now in 2025 and 26, we are making so many changes and deciding who's in charge of all these areas. Pretty
mm.
important, and especially your roadmap to finding self. Wow. Any final words to my listeners?
Believe in yourself. and make your lives count. And to do so, really give yourself time and space to connect within and love your bodies. I think especially for us women, be in your body and love your body, because through your body, that's your vessel to feel and to express yourself. So that's what I would like to end with.
Well, you just summed up what my entire podcast is about every single episode. So thank you so much, Sylvia. And to all of our listeners, I hope you've enjoyed our time today with Sylvia. And think all the time, meditate on, embrace in your life the art of crafting a meaningful life. Namaste.
Crafting a meaningful life.